I'm going to be cutting right to the bone here because I don't think this is really much of a laughing matter here, unfortunately. I wish this could be a video where I put a smile on your face, but that's not going to be the case, unfortunately, because today we have a situation in LaGuardia Airport where a plane crashed into a fire truck, which resulted in 2 casualties and multiple injuries as well. There's already an investigation going on. It's a tragic situation all around, and we're going to be breaking it down today. And you're probably wondering if this was like a mechanical issue. Was this like a weather thing, which it wasn't. It definitely wasn't a bird event. It wasn't like a bird hit the engine and the plane had to make an emergency landing. It definitely wasn't that. I don't even know what to call this. It's really sad. There could have been like a miscommunication. We could blame this on multiple things, but I'm not here to pin blame. I just want to break things down for you. Now, I came across this story around Sunday. It was definitely Sunday night. I was playing Halo. I was doing a blind playthrough on Legendary. Y'all should check it out, by the way. I'm going to try to beat Halo from beginning to end. And what happened was that I just got off Halo. I took a shit, grabbed a snack. I got back on my desk, and I was just scrolling through Reddit, just unwinding before I go to work in the morning. And I saw the situation or some reports on LaGuardia Airport that the plane crashed. And I was like, okay, maybe there was just, it wasn't a crash. Maybe it was something else. Like the news was just fresh. And then after a while, maybe like an hour in, there were more reports that, yeah, a plane just crashed into a fire truck, and they were just trying to put the pieces together. Other than that, after I saw the images, because then they were dropping images, it was really bad. Like the plane is banged up really badly. Like the cockpit is totaled. The plane really took a hit. It was a solid hit against the fire truck. So we're going to be reading a bit of a timeline on this whole situation because I personally feel if we're going to understand how this whole thing unfolded, we need to understand what happened and what led to this situation. So according to the CNN article, it reads it was 10 p.m. when the CRJ 900 took off. That's the plane that crashed into the fire truck in LaGuardia. It was en route on an arrival gate in Elmhurst, Queens. About an hour later, shortly after 11 p.m., LaGuardia's air traffic control tower got a radio message from the pilot of another flight. This one run by United Airlines. His plane has pushed away from the terminal but would head back to it, he said, because of the problem with its de-icing system and on quote, weird odor on board the aircraft, the audio recordings indicates. Then they go on to say, we're going to be going back to the gate. United Flight 2384 pilot said, request fire as well. Request fire basically means by the time we land, like be sure to have a fire truck parked outside ready to assist us because there's an odor, someone's sick, we might need, a fire department to investigate the plane. So as the controllers scrambled to find a gate for the United flight, its pilot declared an emergency, noting that his flight attendants felt ill because of the odor. We will need to go into any available gate at this time, the pilot said. The tower confirmed the request and said that the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which operates LaGuardia, will send a fire truck in case the flight needed to evacuate. Now, this is where I feel everything just started to fall apart here. The article will continue on to say several events happened in quick succession, leading to directly the sort of tragedy not seen on this airfield in decades. At about 11:35 p.m., Air Canada Flight 8646, that's again the plane that crashed into the fire truck, was cleared to land on LaGuardia's runway 4. Minutes later, controllers cleared the Port Authority aircraft, rescue firefighting vehicle, and rescue company responding to the United plane emergency to cross that same path, runway 4. Mere seconds after giving that permission, the controllers seemed to reverse course, empathetically telling the rescue truck to stop, audio reveals. But the Air Canada Flight 8646 had already landed on that runway. It was hurtling at more than 100 miles per hour towards the rescue crew. Stop, 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 stop. Truck 1, stop, stop, stop. The controller instructed. It's not clear if the fire crew heard the command or if they misunderstood it, but it was too late. I don't think I need to explain the details that would manifest after that collision. The co-pilot and the pilot both died. As you can see, the cockpit was completely totaled. There were many other injuries. Passengers were injured from the impact, of course. Some people hit their heads pretty hard. There was one woman by the name of Rebecca Rebecca, who's like a nurse, and she acted very quickly. She was able to open the emergency door and get people to slide down the wing. Like, she really came in clutch for everybody to make sure everyone was okay. And she did so the best way possible. The medical team was able to assist the passengers, especially the firefighters that took that impact as well. I heard they're fine. They're still alive. They just suffered a few broken bones. That was really it, which is actually crazy to think about. Like, imagine a plane coming at you at 100 miles per hour and you're in a steel tin can of a fire truck and you walk out with just broken bones. I'm pretty sure, like, they must be going through a hell worth of pain right now. But thank God they're alive. I do want to read this one bit because I feel as if this is really dark with the way CNN just reported this. The article will continue on to say, had the fire truck been anywhere else on the runway, the plane, on quote, would have struck against the wing, the fuel cells, and the engines. It would have created a huge fire and would have had many, many fatalities. It's just out of pure luck that the airplane hit the middle of that fire truck. 18 minutes after the collision, a noticeably distraught air traffic controller spoke with a Frontier Airlines pilot that wasn't good to watch. The pilot said per audio recording. Yeah, I know, the controller responded. I tried to reach out to them. We were dealing with an emergency earlier. I messed up. Nah, man, the pilot responded. You did the best you could. Now, I do want to focus on the ATC situation for a moment, only because I feel that this is where the heart of the situation comes in. We can talk about many things and say who was to blame or what was to blame at that moment, but I think just narrowing down on this situation just ignores the bigger picture here. Now, we all know that air traffic control is the brain of everything when it comes to airplanes. Air traffic control is basically responsible for the planes that come in and the planes that come out. If there's no available terminals or no available runways and there's a plane up in the sky, you are responsible for communicating these things to these pilots and letting them know, hey, there's no runway available. Yes, you can go down runway 4. Yes, you can come down runway 3, etc., etc. It's a very stressful job. Now imagine doing that for hours on end. You're communicating with every vehicle, every rescue, every pilot. It is an insane job to take on. Now, the big question that we're going to have here in this investigation is, how is it that traffic control allowed a plane to come in and then minutes later, moments later, whatever, you tell a truck to cross the same runway that a plane was descending into? And we already got some sort of an answer from ATC saying, I messed up. That is very scary to hear that. To hear someone say, I messed up, I tried to stop him, it almost feels like an admission of guilt or an admission of fault. Like, that is a very big thing. Like, we're talking about admitting guilt on a federal agency's broadcast. Now, I think anyone that's scared of flying planes might need to leave the room for this one, because I generally feel this is something that they don't want to hear. But this has been a trend for quite some time, at least for several years now. You do have the FAA that is struggling with shortages from ATC to pilots. It's actually pretty bad. Now, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't something you have to dig into and connect the dots to really find the true culprit behind this. No, like it's a documented fact. We all know that there's shortages when it comes to ATC. And when there are shortages in that field, things get increasingly dangerous. You have ATC staff members that are working long hours, they're short-staffed. Mental health is a huge thing at the ATC. Like, it's so scary how this agency doesn't address that issue. So when you have these three things in one tower, and then you have a person that is running the traffic of one of the busiest airports in the country, and a collision happens, you have to ask yourself, like, no shit, something like that would take place. And I'm not trying to be like a doomer here and saying all these situations that's going on with like air traffic control and the shortages is going to jeopardize the safety of a lot of flights that we go through. It's a literal fact. Look at what happened in January of 2025 when a Black Hawk helicopter crashed into an airplane that resulted in the death of over 60 people. Now, I want to be fair here only because I don't want this video to be all doom and gloom and be don't ride on planes because of all this situation is going on. This is not that video. I will be honest. riding on a plane is statistically safer than any form of transportation. It's better than a train, it's better than a car, it's better than a boat. You are much safer on a plane. That fact is still true. But at the same time, this video isn't about encouraging people that don't like riding planes to get on a plane. There is a pattern that's going on in the past recent years that is getting much harder to ignore. And it's not a one-off thing. Like in January of last year, like I mentioned before, you had the Black Hawk helicopter that crashed into the airplane that killed dozens of people. And then a few months later, you had the UPS cargo plane that also crashed in Louisville. And then at the same time, you have the FAA that just recently reported that there have been 97 incursions this January alone. For those that don't know, an incursion basically means when an airplane or a vehicle of sort crosses a certain path or intersection or runway without any clearance. 97 of those took place this year in January alone. It goes without saying that this is definitely a crisis going on in the aviation industry. And plus, not to mention, you do have that partial government shutdown that is currently in effect. It's actually happening as we speak. And that is also affecting TSA agents. It's also affecting air traffic control staff as well. There is so much going on in the aviation industry. Looking at the situation, I think the thought that's very hard to rationalize is that you had two pilots from Canada that were tasked to fly a plane from Montreal to New York City. It was only a 1-hour flight. And they did everything right. They done everything perfect down to the T. They communicated with ATC. ATC gave them the clearance to descend on runway 4, only for them to get into a collision with a fire truck. And these two pilots are never coming home. Again, I think that thought is very hard to rationalize because you did everything right. And despite that, it costed you your life. Like, I don't think anybody could prepare themselves for that kind of thought. This whole situation just really sucks. It really does. There's so much noise in the air with the government shutdown and the TSA shortages and the long lines and the ATC shortages. There's just so much going on. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get any updates on this investigation until like next year, maybe a few months at best. I think the big question that people are really going to be asking is, how did this lead to be? How is it that you give a plane clearance and then a minute later you give a truck clearance to cross that same runway? I think that is the biggest question that people are asking. But like I mentioned before earlier in the video, the ATC staff just gave us like a partial answer. Their only answer being, I messed up. Pretty tragic situation all around. I'll see y'all in my next video. Peace.